Welcome to Business Connection. I'm Liz Spencer. We have a really great guest in studio, and it's a very important guest to have. It's Christian Gianotti, and you're a financial advisor, and you're from Senior Assistant Services, and you're really providing a valuable service to our seniors, and especially to our seniors who are bilingual, Hispanic,
yes,
and a huge population. Tell me.
Huge. The numbers, according to the numbers that I've seen, there's about 12 to 15,000 seniors turning 65 daily.
Wow.
So I would imagine about 35%, 40% of those people are Hispanics. And we have, across the United States, we have close to over 15 million people that I know, based on what I read, that qualify right now for Medicare supplement or some type of Medicare Advantage program.
Right. And, I think we all think about aging, and then we all think it's going to be somehow something's going to happen that we're all going to get set up for Medicare, and we're going to know how to do that. But it's an incredibly complicated process, and we often think that people have a lot of wealth, they have financial advisors.
Right.
But for the regular person, regular Joe and Jane like me, everybody needs a financial advisor, and that's where you've really figured that out.
Yeah, it all came about, helping my parents, and then I realized, wow, that it's very complex.
It is.
The Medicare and You book, that's published every year and sent to every single senior, it's about this thick. But if you start going through it, you're going to realize in the second, third page that, whoa, what is the stuff? It's very complex terms and terminology and deadlines and timelines and all these different things.
It's very overwhelming, and I think we often forget that as senior, we all have parents. We're all sons and daughters. We're grandsons or granddaughters. Correct. So we're all touched by that senior community. That's a large population. And they're often, I would imagine, just like I am for my parents, I contact someone like you to help them. And would that be a first step to get involved with you?
That's the best thing. Every individual that's turning 65, before they're 65, 62 years old, and they have serious concerns about Social Security or Medicare, they need to be assessed, because there's underlying situations going on that we can help them increase their Social Security pension, as well as going into Medicare, making sure that they have 100% coverage, because a lot of them with Medicare, it only covers 80%. So that 20% is a gap. Then how to cover that 20% before you end up in the hospital? Most people, what happens is they don't feel it's very, very troublesome by paying the co-pays at the doctor, whatever the difference is, which is 20%. But if you end up in the hospital, 20% of 50,000 or 100,000 is a huge liability. And then that really takes that senior couple into a completely different financial situation of debt.
Right. Well, and you said something very interesting. I mean, Medicare starts when, really 62, and we're all feeling great at that age. Right. And so that's when we...
Right. I have seniors that come into my office at 70 years old, and they said, well, I never needed anything at 65 because I was running marathons and I was in great shape, and, some guys said, boast about their girlfriends, whatever, but when they turn 70 and all of a sudden they need medications, they need treatments, they need all these different things. By that time, if they're not fully covered, they're looking at huge expenses, medical expenses, treatments, procedures, and having to pay that 20% is a huge liability for them.
So you talked about being assessed. So is it a good idea if they're in that 60s time period, whether it be the parent or the senior themselves, or maybe the parent and a son or daughter to come see you? Because that to start well would be
exactly.
great.
It's very important. When it comes to Social Security, for example, a lot of couples, what they can do is they can grab onto the coattails of the spouse. So a mom can actually take her retirement and the pension that comes from the husband until her pension grows at an 8% clip per year, until she's about 66, 67, and then she can switch and receive her own pension at almost double the amount that what she qualified for at 62. That's something that, for example, that in the Hispanic community, they don't know, hardly anybody knows. And what that happens is by the time they're both close to 70, their income is almost twice what they would have gotten at a younger age.
Well, you said the Hispanic community. That's a community that you're focusing on. Tell me why.
There's one of the issues that happen is looking at the numbers, the quantities of Hispanics that don't have Medicare. is a study that basically came through the insurance agencies. When I started working with insurance agencies, one of the numbers that came up was the impact that they wanted to make in the Hispanic communities in cities like Chicago, New York, California, and they saw the numbers of opportunity of where the demand is. So I went in and started going into it. Very quickly, I realized that they were completely underserved, uninformed, and there was, when I started going in and helping people, immediately I started getting a lot of referrals, family members, and saying, help my mom, help my dad. So it exploded into a practice now that when I'm open during the day, I'm very busy.
Right. Well, but you've really reached out. You're bilingual yourself. You're meeting that population where they're at, which is so different from most approaches.
Exactly. I opened up an office in Berwyn. I used to have an office on Ashland, and the idea is to open up maybe 2-3 different locations inside the communities where the Hispanics live, so make it easy for them to get to the location. I also have a radio show, that I'm doing. Most Hispanic families, especially at that senior age, don't read. They don't read very much, but they do listen to the radio and watch TV. So in my radio show on Fridays at 9 a.m., Univision America 1200, I'm able to reach thousands of people. And it's not until they hear me on the radio 4 or 5 times that they pick up the phone and call me and say, I need your help. So even with the audience that listens, it takes about 4 or 5 times for them to feel comfortable and build that trust. I invite doctors, I invite different people in the community that deal with health in order to provide that platform of education to my audience.
Right. Well, and it's building trust. It's also building our own confidence to say, yes, I'm ready to make this step. That I need to reach out. I need to ask for help. We're all, whether we're Caucasian, Hispanic, I think we all don't like to ask for help. But you make it easier by meeting us halfway.
Right, exactly. What's happened is I have a strong conviction for what I do. I've taken a couple of clients, and I was explaining to you right before the show, where it was, Maggie, for example, went from $200-300 in Social Security income to close to $1,000, plus savings from that the husband doesn't have to now pay for her health insurance. So now the family's looking at buying a house a year later. So who would have thought that a family, receiving $300-400 a month, a year later could be planning on buying a house?
Right. Well, and I think that's where your expertise in outside eye and counsel looking in, because we often can't see our own situation, and we don't know what's out there, especially in the Medicare world.
Right. What I see, for example, is we might have a client, a couple, that between the two of them bring in less than $2,000 in Social Security income, but they might have 4 or 5 assets paid off, okay, and they're worth over $1 million. And have hundreds and thousands of dollars in checking accounts or CDs, that they don't know what to do, and they're trying to figure out how to provide this for their children, leave this as an inheritance for them, and they don't know how to even start. How do I start step one? All
right. Well, step one is to give you a call. So thanks for stopping by and sharing with me what you do and serving this valuable population.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
We'll be right back with more Business Connections. Stay tuned.